the key benefit of being able to use fat more efficiently. But also, there's, I'll say, indirect benefits of being in ketosis for athletes that relate back to being able to recover faster. We think that's related to the anti-inflammatory effects of ketones, the less oxidative stress that's generated when you're keto adapted. All this makes it easier for these athletes to recover from stressful exercise. And over time, this really allows them to adapt to their training and more favorably, and allows them to train harder if they can recover faster and more fully. I think there's also benefit in terms of weight loss, specifically fat loss, that occurs more effortlessly when you're in ketosis, and this benefits athletes, especially endurance athletes, who become more efficient. If you lose fat but retain your muscle, that makes your power to weight ratio improve, and you're just more efficient. Whether you're a cyclist or a runner, you're carrying less weight, but you have the same muscle tissue. That translates into improved performance. So I think it's multifactorial. But increasingly, a lot of athletes are experiencing enough perceived benefit where they really want to make this switch permanent, and that's occurring across not just the endurance athletes, but high-intensity athletes and team sports as well, especially soccer and rugby across a lot of different countries. Now you're seeing many examples of teams adopting this type of lifestyle. One aspect of ketosis is the enhanced recovery from exercise. And this hasn't been well studied in the scientific literature, but it's certainly one of the most common perceived benefits that endurance athletes talk about. For example, many of the athletes that we've worked with are competitive in very long endurance races, like 100-mile races. And this is pretty demanding and stressful on the body, where these athletes will take weeks, sometimes a month, to fully recover from these events where they can get back to their normal training because of the oxidative stress, the inflammatory stress, just the mechanical stress and literal tearing of membranes that occurs with so much exercise. And that takes time to recover from. When athletes switch to a ketogenic diet, their recovery becomes much faster, where we know many athletes who are back training at pretty much normal pace a couple days after competing in these very strenuous events. So our best guess at the mechanism of what's happening is less oxidative stress, less inflammation. Probably there's immune effects possibly too that are impacted by a ketogenic diet that just set the stage for being able to recover quicker from these very stressful events. So in terms of higher intensity, explosive type exercise, we have a pretty limited number of studies that have evaluated how keto adaptation affects that specific type of performance. But clearly there's athletes out there performing at a higher intensity level who are keto adapted, where it doesn't seem to compromise their ability to do that type of exercise. It may take longer for that specific aspect of performance to come back and to actually augment that type of performance. So instead of 3 to 4 weeks, which generally is the time period it takes to adapt for endurance exercise, this may take a couple months or longer. So it also depends on the type of training. If you're really wanting to enhance your high intensity exercise performance, then training specifically for that is really important, and that's often ignored by endurance athletes who overemphasize the aerobic endurance aspects, and as a result, that aspect, higher intensity aspect, is compromised. So specifically doing some explosive type training along with the ketogenic diet and doing that over a long enough period seems to be adequate to at least maintain, if not augment, that type of performance.